Eric Lovely, hour number one. Hour number two, we have Joseph Bannister. Again, this is the hard work of Karen Tostado. For those of you who have not heard of him, Eric, as soon as I brought the name up, and immediately knew who he was. Just a brief summary of what his story is all about. He worked for law enforcement in the IRS, special agent at the IRS in law enforcement, and in doing so, he had a very highly decorated career, very bright, promising career as an enforcement agent for the IRS, until the one day he decided to question the legitimacy of the IRS, the legitimacy of the constitutional amendment that created the IRS, and suddenly he found himself at the wrong end of the higher-ups at the IRS, and the rest unfolded into the story we'll hear tonight. So make sure you stay tuned for hour number two. Again, that is Joseph Bannister joining us for the second hour. All right. We got all kinds of stuff to go over tonight, but I want to kick it off with a video that I put up last night. Actually, it got up very, very late. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning East Coast time before this thing was published, because I just kept reading this article over and over and over again in disbelief at how far the U.S., the United States of America, has fallen. How far we've come. Whoa, sorry, Eric, if that was blasting in your ear. Yesterday there was a document release, a warning release from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, claiming to have the highest confidence, highest confidence that there's going to potentially be violence at the upcoming Democratic and Republican conventions happening very soon. In the article, they say that most people are going to, shut up and do as they're told, and they're going to go into their free speech zones and hang out, and none of them would dare step outside the boundaries. None of them would cross the line. None of them would dare stand up for themselves, is how I read that. But those that do, Eric Lovely, those that do are going to be anarchists. Now, it's bad enough that we have the FBI, the DHS, looking for domestic terrorists where they don't exist. And in a lot of cases, we know, creating domestic terrorists where they don't exist or didn't previously exist. So them issuing this statement is bad enough, but to see the culpability of the mainstream media jump on board when they do issue this statement, because this article that I attached the video, and I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat here in a minute, it made sure that it drew a comparison to this recent release from the FBI DHS on a potential, maybe, could be, it might happen, might see some kind of violence, and when it does, it's going to be anarchist. The report, the mainstream media outlet that wrote this article, made sure that you remembered the Cleveland Five, and how the Cleveland Five anarchists had this elaborate plot, this brain trust, together. I don't think they could do third-grade math, but they had this big elaborate plan to take out a bridge inside of Cleveland, and it was thwarted by the incredible efforts of this Joint Terrorism Task Force, and more importantly, millions upon millions of dollars that were spent to glorify the police state. So we have the mainstream media dragging non-issues, because if you do any investigation in the Cleveland Five, you see these guys were patsies from the word go. It all, for all the world, to me anyway, looked like a massive sting operation that cost millions of dollars, employing people that were true, legitimate criminals, convicted felons, employing them to go out and lure a bunch of idiot kids into agreeing to show up to talk about a plan that was never going to come to fruition, and indeed never did come to fruition. No bridge came down, nobody got hurt. It was a bunch of kids running around being stupid and agreeing to show up at the wrong place at the wrong time so we can make a name for the Joint Terrorism Task Force. But that doesn't stop the propagandist media. It doesn't stop these branches of government that are completely and totally out of control from trying to terrorize the people of this country to believe that, Eric, if anybody stands up for themselves, and I'm not talking violence here, I'm talking you question authority, well then, damn it, Eric, you're nothing but an anarchist. And an anarchist is tantamount to a domestic terrorist. And terrorists will be dealt with in this country. We know it. They'll kill you. They'll kill you, and they'll say the Constitution does not apply. It doesn't matter that you're an American. It doesn't matter that you can expect the Constitution to be on your side, to have rights and laws that are built into the Constitution are supposed to protect you. Those don't apply to you because you get pigeonholed into this terrorist group because you stand up for yourself. Eric? Terrorists will be dealt with in this country. We know it. They'll kill you. They'll kill you, and they'll say the Constitution does not apply. It doesn't matter that you're an American. It doesn't matter that you can expect the Constitution to be on your side, to have rights and laws that are built into the Constitution are supposed to protect you. Those don't apply to you because you get pigeonholed into this terrorist group because you stand up for yourself. Eric?
Well, I think that there is a lot more backstory to this. I agree 100% correctly, but there is a bit more backstory. What came the week before and the week before that, the FBI has been hard at work. The FBI has finally solidified and come out in a brief report about 2 weeks ago and said that this is where they started it. The article you read is the end of it. It started with the sovereign citizen movement, and that how we have the sovereigns have been poisoning the minds of citizens around the nation, and that we are domestic terrorists. They officially have claimed we are now terrorists, out in the open, in a brief. They are saying that the anarchical thought patterns that are being produced in a second article are now creating the public dissent. So basically they're blaming everything on the ideas of a sovereign citizen, of a citizen who's in power and not a government. You have to be able to read through the lines. When they blame a sovereign citizen, you have to understand, what is it about the sovereign citizen that makes them terrorists? And then they went from that and said that it was our fault. We were the ones dispersing anarchy. And that now, because we told that we've been telling the people that delegates are what elect people, and that the RNC has failed to regain control of the Republican Electoral College, and Ron Paul has a large amount of delegates, and there's going to be a big confrontation in Tampa. I don't think in the Democratic side so much, but there is a Democrats for Ron Paul rally that is supposedly flying under the radar that's going to take place at the Democratic National Convention. And you have all of this merging together so that if the delegates decide to elect Ron Paul, because they have near-numbered majorities, the Republicans have failed to challenge the delegate in over 13 states. So basically what you're looking at is when they come to crack down to force Mitt Romney to be the delegate, the delegate selection, basically forcing him to be the candidate and forcing Ron Paul out, that if you happen, they're setting the stage now so that when those people rebel and they act out and they call foul and they attempt to do the things that they're supposed to do, that they're elected to do as delegates, the police can now come in and say it's anarchy and it's anarcho thought process that's disrupting the voting process, and they can come in with horses and batons and guns and beat you down and shoot at you and so forth.
Right.
They're laying the groundwork for what they already possibly will do if things doesn't go their way. That's the way I see it.
No, I agree with you 100%. And this isn't, you're right, this isn't new. We can go back to the MIAC report talking about Ron Paul bumper stickers, and we've seen videos of guys who were trying to go through an airport coming from a Ron Paul rally being harassed because he had a box full of cash that were cash contributions, and all this drama that's around people who support liberty and support people like Ron Paul. It's without a doubt a long history of going after freedom-loving people. But I think the latest thing that we see, and we'll talk about it more after the break. We're going to take our first break. Eric Lovely is our guest for the first hour. We're going to be back in 3.5 minutes. Hang tight, guys. I am Charlie McGrath, your host. Eric Lovely is our guest, and we were looking at some headlines during this break, and we'll get into that probably in the second half with Eric, because I can't. I was going to play this video, actually, Mitt Romney's own words from what he had to say up until, I don't know, Eric, what? maybe 6 months ago when he decided all of a sudden he's a audit the Fed type candidate?
Yeah, well, the moment he started seeing that Audit the Fed was getting his can kicked by another, representative who was running for the office of president, when he saw that he was losing Republicans quickly, that he was losing the ability to maintain the lead role as the Republican choice, the Republican Party choice, not the people's choice, but that he immediately flip-flopped and, said, oh yeah, wait, we need to audit the Fed. Good idea.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this is the crux of it here. He talks, he had, and I guess we're going to get into this right now because we're talking about it, but he had a top advisor come out yesterday talking about how they would, more than likely he would advise Mitt to give Bernanke another tour number 3 as the most powerful man in the world. And now today, Mitt came out and said, quote, that he would replace Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke, dismissing the advice of a top advisor who suggested this week that chairman should be considered for a third term. The presumptive key Republican nominee told Fox Business that as president, he would install someone new in the Federal Reserve post. Mr. Bernanke's term ends January 2014. Glenn Hubbard is his top economic advisor, who told Reuters that Ben Bernanke would get every consideration. So let's be really, really clear on what this all means. Nothing. Because Romney's position from the get-go has been, we cannot alter, we cannot mess with, we will not touch, and we won't even dare look at the inner workings of the Federal Reserve. So does anybody really think it matters if you have Ben Bernanke, if you have Alan Greenspan, if you have Lloyd Blankfein, Tim Geithner, Jamie Dimon? I mean, one of those people is probably going to be the next Federal Reserve Chairman, but do we really think it makes any difference whatsoever if we don't fix the internal problems of the Federal Reserve in the first place, which is their complete and total secrecy, their complete and total lack, it seems to me, of consideration for destroying the currency of this country, and their ability to lend money across the world to foreign banks and to their friends on Wall Street, and while the national debt of this country continues to grow? Or is it going to change the fact that they issue every single note at debt and we get to pay that bill? No, none of that's going to change. Eric?
Yeah, I think that another person that you may look at as a possible individual is the BMO Capital Markets individual or spokesperson, head, whatever you want to call it. Her name is Jennifer Lee. If you look at an unemployment, an article on Wide Awake News about the unemployment rate, it says rising jobless claims seen keeping unemployment rate high. So that's the actual article. But if you look at what Jennifer Lee is coming out saying, she's talking about the job growth isn't strong enough, that the Fed is going to have to apply more stimulus, and they're talking about a new round of bond buying,
right,
hoping for an even lower long-term interest rate, which it's at 0. I don't know how the hell you can get any lower than 0, negative, but that would just start to cause all kinds of situational problems. I think that this is the ridiculousness of these idiots and how they flip-flop, and it really, to me, it kind of makes me look at the person who's still voting, which is the majority, okay, of the original voting body, populace, and they're watching this shit. Excuse my language. They're consuming it, and it's not even 6 months apart between the same man saying, basically, really, if you boil it down, he said 3 different things. He's changed his position from a very pro-Federal Reserve to a kind of wishy-washy Federal Reserve to now he's going to audit the Federal Reserve and he should replace him.
Yeah.
I mean, how stupid do people have to be? I mean,
stupid. Really stupid.
Just turn TV off.
Yeah, listen, and you know me, Eric. I don't call, the people that we call sheeple, the people that we call asleep. I never and have never went out and said, look, guys, you're an idiot if you believe this, right? Well, that's changing. That's changing, because if you can sit back in this country right now and you can look at this, I don't, freak show is an insult to freak shows. If you can look at this game that's being played, this performance that's being played out before our eyes, and not see that it is the exact same players doing the exact same thing, bringing us to the exact same point, and if you believe for 1 second that Romney and the red team are going to turn the ship around and somehow make things better, then literally, I don't know what else, after 4 years of this, I don't know what else to think about my fellow Americans if they can't see the forest through the trees. It is infuriating at times. And Eric, I know that sometimes you have a tough time with that when people. Go ahead.
I have a very tough time with it, and people will continue to argue. No matter how many. To me, it's almost to the point now. People tell me not to try to get into debates with people, and at this point, I don't even care to. It doesn't matter how much facts. It doesn't matter how much information you pile up in front of them. They just choose to think their own thing. They choose to think their own interpretation of what the facts are. That they don't. It's just not really reality. So much more to say, but yet another break.
We're going to be back with so much more to say, Eric Lovely, and more Wide Awake News Radio in 3.5 minutes. If you're listening on YouTube, you have about a 2-second wait. We'll be back in a minute. That by Eric Lovely. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. It is the 23rd day of August, Thursday, and we were just commenting on the Larkin Rose video and how how cutting it is. It is cutting to listen to, especially if you're pretending that you're going to get Obama back in and everything's going to be great, or you're going to get Romney in and everything's going to change. You watch something like that Larkin Rose video, and it will slap you back into reality real quick. Karen did have him on, I think it was a week ago, and we'll probably end up getting him back on again at some point. But it is very poignant, it is very cutting, and it's hard to listen to. But Eric, I'm starting to think that, man, that's the only way. I mean, how on earth else can we get the point across? See, and this brings me back to the first segment. We're at a position now where we have a very small minority of people who are looking for more information and who are awake and who realize that it's all been a big lie, and that we're going to head down the same path we've been heading down for 100 years. And, there is no difference between the choices that are given to us. And now we see that if you dare to stand up and say something, it was cool when it was a Tea Party. These guys are out there protesting. It was cool. It was getting a little less cool when it was the Occupy movement. Now, if you dare to step outside the lines, well, you're automatically going to be put in this category of, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you say Ron Paul supporter. It doesn't matter if you say anarchist. It doesn't matter if you say, Muslim extremist. It's all put into the same category now. You're an idiot. Oh, yeah. State.
They've neatly tied them all together. It's called the FBI called it the non-consenting consensual organization, and what they mean is that those bad towel-wearing Muslims and the sovereign citizens and the anarchists and all these different groups, none of them have actually consented to work together, but because they're feverishly speaking out, they are working together even though they don't know it. And that basically means that they tie all of you together so that they can eliminate any of you that they want with any excuse that they need. It really is getting ridiculous. And it's getting ridiculous that anybody still even has any optimism left in them. You got, 44 states now where jobless claims are on the rise. You have people coming out and talking about a new round of bond buying as if that old round ever stopped, like that $1 trillion.
Here's the worst part of it. Right, and here's the worst part of that, Eric. Most people, when they hear bond buying or they hear more quantitative easing, most people actually consider this to be a good thing. Because what did the last one give us? Well, what we were told was we were going off the cliff. When Lehman Brothers was going down, if it wouldn't have been for the extraordinary actions of the Federal Reserve, we would all be in the toilet right now. And because of extraordinary actions, because what ended in QE 1 and 2, more of this would be a better thing. So it's certainly being sold as a good thing. And most people, if you ask them, they're like, well, yeah, we need it to keep the stimulus going. What isn't reported, of course, is we go from $8 trillion to $16 trillion in debt, and jobs still continuing to leave and flee the country. But the rest of the world is also starting to experience these shock waves of economic disaster. So more bond buying, it equals one thing: a harder landing.
Absolutely. And, the problem is that if anybody has half a brain to look around them, they can see that we're bleeding out in every department. Every section of the U.S. government is bleeding out. They can't win the Afghan war. They just had another 59 guys hospitalized with severe injuries, and I think it was below 10 were killed by a red-on-blue attack in Afghanistan. The Taliban is actually converting and or sending their units in to train as the security guard of Afghanistan, and then when they go out into the field, they're turning on the American soldiers and shooting them in the back, and so on and so forth. So we're bleeding out militarily. We can't accomplish any of the things that we're set to do. We're missing more and more money. More and more money is just vaporizing into thin air. I don't care what country you're in. We're trying to destabilize and fracture our own allies into smaller nations. We're trying to split Pakistan into two nations now. I mean, we got drone strikes. We got drones going on in America. We got pre-crimes. The law enforcement, we're bleeding out in law enforcement like it's crazy. These people, I'm tired of hearing about there's good cops because I don't see any. I don't see one. Not one cop has tried to arrest a banker or a politician or an IRS agent or anybody. So to me, it's all pointless. It gets more and more disgusting. And it really, when you talk about your mentality changing towards these people, a great man said once upon a time, when the trumpets are blown and it is time for battle, we stand for truth and justice, and all other thinkers fend for themselves. Now, that was George Washington.
Well,
and that's what we're coming to, ladies and gentlemen. You want to talk about what happens in a civil war? That's where we're at. All these chicken heads with their head in the sand, their head up their crack, and their head everywhere else, they're going to have to fend for themselves. Yes, you can mourn their passing, but really that's what it boils down to. It is time for the liberty, free-thinking libertarians, anyone who believes in a place where you rule your own life and that the government doesn't rule you and you own your own body and you love your own children and you can raise your own children the way you want. Anyone who believes in that, I don't care what your faith is, what the color of your skin is, it's time to band together because the trumpets are about to sound. And all those on the outside of truth and liberty, they're going to have to fend for themselves.
Ohio Prepper likes chicken heads. I kind of like it too, Eric.
Yeah, it's kind of it was that statement was more derived for crackheads, but it applies here too.
Well, all right, let's get into that. I mean, we have a couple minutes left in this segment, and we'll carry it over. I posed a question when I had Ellen Brown on the other night, when I had Doug Newberry on the other night. I mean, the perfect storm. It seems that there's this feeling of normalcy going on right now and normalcy as far as, it's election season. We're going to fight the red and blue. And what I've told people is, look, I think we're going to continue to see this division grow. We're going to see a wedge continue to be placed deeper than we've ever seen before between two segments in this country, at least two herds in this country, the red and the blue, until we have people lashing out against one another, because that is obviously the easiest tactic to take, which is have us fighting amongst ourselves, so we're not looking at the chicken heads that are running the show. So with this feeling of normalcy, with building tension between the red and blue team, it almost seems to me that we see this stabilization in the markets, even though it was a pretty bad day on the markets today. We see the stabilization in this 13,000 point range. We see Europe kind of going out of the focus for a minute. It just this lull, this little bit of lull before I think we trip over something really, really big and not too distant future.
Well, I think it has to happen at some point. I mean, it really, the whole idea of there's so much wrong. Okay, that's the reason why I say we're bleeding out everywhere. That I have no idea where the actual first ripple in the pond is going to start. There are so many problems in so many directions. Yes, they all tie back financially, and that's what brings them all together. Okay, that's where you don't understand where it's going to come from. I mean, is it going to be a huge diplomatic debacle overseas over money, over, I don't really know, but there has to be something somewhere that we stumble on, and it's coming soon.
No doubt. And you know what? I know a lot of people have heard that for a long time, and we're going to talk about that on the backside of this break. Battle fatigue, combat fatigue from paying attention to what's going on. We're going to be back with Eric Lovely, more Wide Awake News Radio, 3.5 minutes. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm Charlie McGrath. Your host, Eric Lovely, is with us. We're talking about the event, that we've been kind of trying to keep in the topics, the top of the topics this week, at least getting into every first segment. Are we headed for this perfect storm, this trigger event, this hurdle? What's it going to be? Well, there's a lot of people who've been that'll send messages saying, "Look, we've been hearing about this perfect storm for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and nothing's going to happen." And
press the button, you must.
and Eric Lovely has just been taken to the Alderaan system, where he's doing some training with Master Yoda, I believe. Master Yoda, are you on the line? Oh, we might have lost Eric. Anyway, let me keep going here with this thought.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What happened there, buddy?
Just a call from the doctor people and whatnot, and the people involved telling me that she's going to be on her way home. So.
Oh, good. Okay, good deal. That's your ringtone, is what that is.
Yeah. That's what that is. Right. I even got a little thing for my birthday that goes on my hat that says I'm a Jedi Master. So yeah,
Well, I'm glad. Obviously, she's heading home. She's all right.
Yeah, but I don't want to, waste a lot of precious time with my own personal things and people feeling sorry for me. The message and the information is way more important. And what we were talking about during the break and looking at what it is here's what people don't understand. The collapse, the event, it's already happening. But instead of it happening in minutes and hours, it's happening in months and quarters of a year.
Great point.
So people are actually seeing events as different events. They don't understand that it is a slow motion cascade. And that all of the events that happened from the time we've been starting this, well, when I started it, way, way, way back long ago, has been nothing but a slowly moving Fabian cascade event. One tipping point after another tipping point until it builds to a crescendo and it moves on to a new platform. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing one thing happen at a time over a longer period, but they are all linked together, and it is happening in a succession. The only thing you can be happy about is that allows you more time to do whatever it is you need to do, more time to make a change, more time to build your community and be prepared to defend yourself, and so on and so forth. But the situation that we keep talking about, it's already happening. I mean, look at it. Look at what's going on with the military. Look at the brand new missile shield that's now going to encompass China. Remember the missile shield that went to encompass Russia, and Russia said, you're attempting to cordon off the planet so that China and Russia and our allies are separated from the rest of the world. They said, oh, no, that's not what's happening. So now you have the new missile defense screen, which is now going in the Asiatics to defend against North Korea, big bad North Korea. But actually, it's really geared and pointed at the Chinese. This is happening. They're one after another events, and they're all linked together. And I wish people would stop asking about it, because it is happening. It's happening right in front of your face. And the more quantitative easing they talk about, the more the Fed's balance sheet swells without any explanation, means they're continuing the activity. The event is ongoing, and no, it's nowhere near over yet.
And when you look, the great point is, and you and I have talked about this way back on your radio program, that it's happened. I mean, hello, it's happened. The collapse has occurred. What's happening now is, the easing in. We're being this slow spiral downward.
It's fallout. It's a slow-moving fallout, is all it is.
But I still believe that there will be this tragic event that will snap everybody into realization that things just aren't what they used to be. And I think that isn't going to be unleashed until everything is in place. And by what I mean by everything being in place, is everything that has occurred in the last Eric, I know you're going to go back farther than this, but I'm just going to go back to 2008. Everything that has occurred since 2008. All the legislation passed to make you a criminal, make you a terrorist if you dare to stand up and say anything. All the legislation in the past that has turned the keys of the economy over to a bunch of criminal banks. All the things that have happened since 2008 that have a unified global cabal of international banksters so that they would be able to have the power and authority to see who lives, who dies, and to completely evaporate sovereign governments around the planet, and all the things that have happened in 2008 to destabilize the world to where the point it is right now, where you have wars on every front, and you have nonstop talk of war by our so-called representatives in D.C., and you have just this chaotic mess of a planet that is immersed not only in military action, but financial destitution. At some point, the rug is going to be pulled out on the charade of recovery and on the charade of peace and stability, and we will all fall down this together, and we will be offered this solution that will be nothing of the kind. It will be, bow down and lick the boots of the chicken heads. I said chicken head.
Yeah. Well, if the chicken heads get their way, and I'm kind of seeing something develop, I think, and when I start analyzing the situation. If I remember, we talk about a slow cascading event, so you have to look into the past to understand what's unfolding in the future. One of the big events that the American people came out and spoke out about, and the American people attacked Bush about, and the American people attacked Clinton about, even though most people don't realize that Clinton, both Bushes and the Clinton were involved in the new North American Union. If you look at it, I think if the chicken heads get their way, I'm actually leaning to think that they're going to put Mitt Romney in the office. If you look at what Mitt Romney's saying, if you look at his energy policy, if you look at his financial policy, it revolves around the economic and energy-free North America. Not just Americans. He's going back into the SPP and the American Union, or the North American Union, and he is not actually saying those words, but he is talking in the rhetoric of a freer economic North America and an energy-free North America and more jobs for North America. He's no longer just talking about the United States.
All right. Well, let me break it down for you, because you're in the exact same boat as Dimcat. Because last night, he thinks that Romney's going to pull this out too, and Obama's not going to be reelected. And you know what? 4 minutes left. 4 minutes out of an hour program is too much time to start to talk about the political process and the difference between Romney and Obama. I mean, seriously, on this program, my program, 4 minutes, and I'm going to keep babbling to make it only 3 minutes, of talking about the differences between Obama and Romney. That's too much time to talk about.
Take 5 seconds, because there isn't any.
There isn't any. You're right, there isn't any. But my position is on this, and I'm sure a lot of people will call me out if I'm wrong. Obama's in. Forget it. Obama's in. And if you need to know anything, know this. Over 50% of the people that you see walking around, wherever you live, wherever you're listening to me from, in the United States, over 50% of those people are on some sort of assistance from the government. That doesn't mean they pay everything. It means over 50% of the people in this nation receive assistance from the government. There is absolutely no way that this fact is going to go by the wayside and not be capitalized on in the next 120 days. There's no way that isn't going to be a driving point from this point till the November elections. And that is it. That is tantamount to owning the vote. You have people getting $400 a month to put food on their table, and they're terrified that they're going to lose it if Romney gets in there, because they're talking about cutting and burning and slashing to get the deficit under control. What they don't understand is it's going to be lost anyway. It doesn't matter if Obama's back in there, but it's a captive voting bloc that will be utilized. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it could go either way, but, Romney is really putting out... The only reason why I say it is because the rhetoric that is coming out of Romney is more towards what the establishment wants to move towards. It is the only reason why I say that.
Yeah.
And it really, we've talked about this before, and, I do want to end the note because I wanted to get it in to all those people in Texas who have sent me messages and so forth. I do understand that they're starting to spray for the West Nile virus from planes. They're going to spray everything. They don't care what bugs live there. They don't care what animals live there. They don't care what people live there. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. There is one guy. The pilots have been ordered and instructed, and the computer response of the plane and autopiloting has been reprogrammed to not spray the Bush's residence.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Well, there's another guy in Texas. He happens to be a judge who's warning of World War III, or no, what was it, Civil War? Civil War if Obama is reelected. I think he's half right. I think this nation's heading towards some kind of climatic event that certainly could be a war inside this nation, people fighting each other. Hopefully it's not a red and blue fight. Hopefully it's a realization that we need to get these criminals out of power. We need to hold accountable, arrest, throw in prison for the rest of their lives, perp walk all these criminals. Hopefully that's the kind of action we see, not fighting amongst ourselves. But this Texas judge, I'm sure you saw that article, Eric, where he's claiming he's beefing up his sheriff's department because he wants to make sure that they can fight off the blue helmets coming into Texas.
Yeah, and he's got, I don't know if they're going to deem him crazy or not.
They already have. Mainstream's already ripped him apart.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to try to take a judge into some mental hospital and hold him for X amount of days. We'll see what happens there. Another thing we missed out on is the German court decision that's coming up on the 12th of September. Is basically they're saying it could be the make or break for the Eurozone. For all you guys in Europe who message me and listen to me, I am paying attention to it. No, I didn't get enough time to inject it into the show except for this last minute. There's so much more that we missed, but Charlie, I just continue to want to tell people to look at their families, look at the people they love and the loved ones that are around them, and remember what it is that you're staying the course for. Remember what it is that you're fighting for.
Amen. I'm glad your wife's fine. I'm glad she's on her way home, buddy.
Thank you.
You betcha. Eric Lovely, he'll be back here Tuesday night, 5 p.m. West, 8 p.m. East for hour number 1 along with me. Eric, thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Guys, hang tight. We're going to do our long break of the program, take us across the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to have a Joseph Bannister, former special agent for the IRS. It's going to be an interesting hour. We'll see you in 10 minutes.